And I'll say good morning one more time. Today is the 10th of April. This is the Kootenai County, Northern Idaho A.L.I.C.E Task Force. And I am Nikki Swain. Rebecca Pratt, our new facilitator, also with United Way, is also here. And I am now going to welcome KJ Brant, who's going to introduce herself and talk to us about some brains. Yeah, you can screen share. Fabulous. All right, I'll mute myself.
Okay, I'm unmuted and you guys can all see the screen. Yeah, thank you. So I'm with the Idaho Children's Trust Fund. I'm the Community Resource Coordinator. And one of the Trust Fund's initiatives is to promote the Crying Baby Plan across the state to as many resource providers and parents as possible. And when we go through this, you'll see why it's a very important initiative for us. Abuse of head trauma, shaken baby syndrome are considered child abuse. And so we are the state agency, the lead agency on child abuse prevention. And so this is why this has fallen into our lap. So thank you for taking or allowing me to have some minutes here to go through this. I am training you a plan that has that the large majority of the component would be to pass on to parents. And so this resource will be able to be provided to you if you want it. You just need to let me know. And we'll talk about that as I go through. And why is it not forwarding? Oh, it did. Okay, just was a little slow. Abusive head trauma is what it's called now. It used to just always be referred to as shaken baby syndrome, but shaken baby syndrome is just one type of abusive head trauma. And so now we're using the more encompassing words. Today we'll talk about what it is, how it's caused, the outcomes, who's at risk, and how we can support parents to prevent this. So abusive head trauma is caused by shaking, as we talked about, but it also can be caused other ways. So blunt force trauma to the head hits something, or sorry, and it's often accompanied by skeletal and cranial fractures. I wonder why this isn't forwarding. Oh, I guess I just clicked the slide. It's different. So this is how it happens. I'm sure you've all been, I know many of you are already trained in this, but the part of this that we share for parents is all newly developed by Children's Trust Fund. But basically, the brain in an infant is very gelatinous, almost. And so that's why when you have the shaken baby, it bounces back and forth within the skull, and whereas ours doesn't do that as much because our brain's more solid. So the brain of an infant is gelatinous. And this shows the different layers, both going left, like inside to outside, and then the picture on the left shows all the different layers of the brain. So you have the skin, and then some layers in between that and the bone, and then you have some more layers between that and the brain. And injury can happen within any of these layers. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But that's why it's so hard to diagnose, because it's not always visible, and it doesn't always show up, depending on what type of scan. If you just got an x-ray, it may not show up. So the initial symptoms of shaken baby are lethargy, decreased appetite, vomiting, decreased consciousness, seizures, and the baby cries or is irritable. These are symptoms that we do want to have our parents recognize, because you start seeing a combination of these, or they're getting worrisome. It's time to take the baby to the hospital. The physical impact of the shaken baby, everything in the light gray are things that you can see. So a doctor could pick up on all these things in the light gray immediately, but still not know that it's from abusive head trauma. But all the things in blue are things that you can't see immediately. And again, that goes back to why this can be undiagnosed. It's very common to be undiagnosed because to catch any of the items in the blue below, that requires further testing by specialists. So not different types of specialists, and I'll talk more about that. So what happens when there's the shaking or blunt force trauma, you can see the layers here again, where the bridging veins go between all those layers, and the shaking can shear within any one of those layers, can shear a blood vessel. And that shearing depends where it's sheared is where you'll start to have the bleeding. So the bleeding again can be within any one of those layers. And here's an example of what happens. So once one of those blood vessels is sheared, then you have blood in that area. So this is a drawing of it, but then there's also a picture of a scan that shows what it would look like on a scan. Shaking blunt force trauma also causes retinal bleeding. The picture, so this is looking in your eye from the front to the back. This is what you would see in the back of your eye. And the one labeled D is a normal, healthy retina. And the one labeled B is a retina with a bunch of blood vessels that have burst and abnormal. And that retina look right there can only be caused by shaken baby. Shaken baby and blunt force trauma also cause rib and skeletal fractures. So the way you can see the fingers on the left kind of dig into the spine, that's where most of the fractures occur. You might have thought, well, most of it's in the front, and it can be in the front, but the baby's spine is very fragile. And unfortunately, those don't show up in, a parent can't see them, and at just a medical visit, they would not notice those. They really actually don't show up until there's healing. So if there's any suspicion of the shaken baby, the medical doctors will have you come back in a couple weeks, then take the x-rays. Then you can see where those arrows are pointing to is where healing's occurred. And that shows that there was a fracture. And also this is how doctors can tell if this happened multiple times. You can have multiple stages of healing. So why this is important is this is the leading cause of death for children under 2, and it is a form of child abuse. And unfortunately, it's devastating. 70% of the time, there'll be lifelong disabilities, and 25% of the time the baby dies. So if you add that up, that means only 5% of the time, that's one episode of shaking, only 5% of the time can a child potentially be unscathed. So it's very, very serious. It's if it happens one time, it's most likely there'll be disabilities or death. And why is it hard? You know, we talked a little bit why it's hard for diagnosis. There's so many doctors have to be involved to diagnose this. It's hard to see, so a lot of times it can be missed because there may not be any visual findings right out of the gate. The terminology is changing a lot. The understanding of this has changed a lot. Parents may not have risk factors, so you know it's not something that should have a bias. It's not like low-income people shake more. It can be any economic group that there could be a bias with physicians that couldn't have possibly happened. They're members, well, upstanding members of our community. They would never do that. They know better. And then misleading information makes it really hard too, because most of the time the mother is usually not the one shaking, and most of the time she comes in and she has no idea what happened, no idea who could have done it. And so it gets really hard to figure out. As we talked about, the medical prognosis are not good. These are all the outcomes, the very likely outcomes of experiencing shaken baby. And there's a lot of myths. Appropriate play, rocking and bouncing doesn't cause it. An existing medical problem does not cause this. A sibling or a toddler doesn't have the force to make it happen. A baby cannot do this to themselves. A one-time falling off a couch or a bed is not enough force to cause this. Even falling falling down the stairs, which is really a series of short falls, doesn't cause this, and CPR does not cause this. So this is the part of the presentation where as a provider, you can choose to start here with parents if you don't want to go into the medical piece that I just did. You really have to weigh it. Like if maybe you're going to present this as a class, then you might want to do the whole thing. But if you're just maybe working with one parent that you have some concern with, you may skip over the whole first part of the presentation. You're also able, if there's a first part of the presentation that you like, you can bump the slide down to this part here and start here. So this is some examples of why this occurs. So here is a problem, a really easy word problem, and we ask you to try to solve it. And when you do this with your parents, they ask that you play this for like 2 minutes. And with this playing for 2 minutes, it starts getting difficult to solve that problem. And you guys probably, anybody starting to feel anything?
I think most of us want to go and pick up that baby right now, right?
Right. So imagine that occurring for hours. You know, if you felt anything right now, I bet most of you felt your heart rate go up just a little bit, and you maybe start getting a little bit of warmth. And I don't know if you were able to solve that problem with that crying in the background, if you're able to do that. Sorry, I'm trying to fast forward. So part of the problem too is not just the stress of the crying. It's a person who's been awake from crying for hours and hours could be is cognitively impaired as someone who's legally drunk. And a parent who's only getting 6 hours a night, night after night after night, can be as cognitive impaired worse than being drunk. So, and sleep deprived individuals do not accurately assess how sleep deprived they are. So they may come into your office and you're like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm okay. I'm just a little tired. What's a little tired? When you start looking into it, you know, they've been getting 4 hours of sleep for a month. So between the stress of the crying and actually being cognitively impaired, decision-making starts to become different or difficult. And then you can have high levels of other stress, unrealistic expectations of the how your parenting should be going. You know, maybe your friend's baby never cries and your baby cries all the time. And there's a lot of different expectations that can be brought in. Some people have felt that babies are doing this on purpose to irritate the parent. And they may have a lack of support, so just no break at all. This is a video, which I'm not going to play. It's a 5-minute, 50-second video, but it's a great video that you can play for parents. So there's different ways of presenting this information. When you have a parent that maybe you're concerned about, or maybe you want to do this to all parents that come through your program, which is awesome. You can choose to show the PowerPoint, but if for your time limited or whatever, you can put them in front of the video. Minimum, you want them to watch this video. That is the minimum that you'll want to do with any new parent. And then this talks about making a crying plan. So it's the same thing as like a fire drill we do with children. If you practice the fire drill in advance, they know what to do. If someone has never practiced in advance, when they're in the middle of a crisis, and for those of you who worked with domestic violence victims, it's the same thing as a safety plan. When you're in the middle of a crisis and you're stressed and you're crying, it's hard to think about how to make safety happen. But if you write it down in advance and think it through, then when you're in the moment of that crisis, like a fire drill, you know exactly what room you're supposed to go to, or, you know, et cetera. It just is automatic. And that's the same concept behind the crying baby plan, is get this plan in place in advance, and then it'll be more likely to be successful. So the first part is just go through your baby's checklist and make sure that there's all these, you know, this is not the reason it's happening. And if you can't stop through one of those, then, and your baby's just crying, that's very, very normal. You know, baby's peak amount of crying is typically around the 2-month area. So parents need to understand that. And when they've tried everything else, there's other things that they can do to help, you know, kind of checklist again, go through, try some white noise, reposition, swaddle the baby, swing, rock, car rides. I know that worked great for my kids. I'd literally get in the car and drive. Pacifier. But just as importantly is to have a plan for the caregiver. Deep breaths. I know we all have our different ways of the deep breathing. We all know that a couple deep breaths can calm your CNS system, bring your heart rate to almost half in a matter of seconds. So this is one example of the deep breath, which is breathe in 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, out 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds. But there are so many other types of great breathing. So whatever works best for the parent, ask if they know any, if they already are using something. And if they don't, there's so many things online that you can have them experiment with different ones. Go outside, count to 100, wash it off. Taking a shower is a huge source of stress relief. Exercise, putting in the safe place. They say you can leave a baby 5 to 10 minutes in a crib crying without checking in, and then check in at 10 minutes. And by hopefully then you're more calm. So part of this is again, I said it's a plan. So this is available online. And also I have pamphlets. If you don't have this pamphlet in your office, you can order a stack of them for free through this website, and have them, they're a trifold that opens up, and the backside is this plan. You can also just download it, make copies of it. But again, it's doing things in advance. And this is the piece that gets lost. Parents might learn this information, but what about their caregivers? Does the babysitter next door know this? Does the babysitter have a plan? Does grandma have a plan? Does uncle have a plan? So understanding that caregivers also need to know this information, and parents need to be careful with caregivers. A caregiver with any of these risks, they should not leave their infant with, because they're more likely to end up at the abusive head trauma stage. And then just understanding, you know, ask these questions. Why does this person want to watch my baby? Is, you know, sometimes it could be because I'm sleeping with the mother. So it's, I have to, you know, it's an exchange, but that's not a good reason. That person then may not take the best care of the baby. But most importantly is making sure that the caregiver knows you have a crying plan, and their crying plan could be a little bit different. So the one the parent has might be different than the babysitter. The babysitter plan is going to say when they get frustrated, when they're starting to get frustrated and the baby's not stopping to cry, they need to call the parent or whoever the parent designates. So the babysitter's plan will be a little bit different. But again, it's letting the babysitter know, you know, we have these lists. Have you tried all these things? Okay, none of that's working. The baby's crying, understanding that that's okay. That's normal. They're not doing it on purpose. And then when they start getting frustrated or angry, what are they going to do? So as providers, you have the unique opportunity to prevent abusive head trauma by checking in with parents regularly, asking them how it's going at home, asking how we can help, having this plan, and just talking about this. Because again, this isn't commonly, I'm sure all of you already have heard about this, but that's because you've worked in social services forever. But so many parents, especially young ones, have never heard of this. So most importantly, just encourage parents to ask for help. There's references on on this if you want to look in deeper into anything. And yes, and so do you have any questions or any feedback?
Kind of hard. I think so. I have a bunch of thoughts in my head, from the emergency room doctor to the pediatrician or other people who encounter, children. Obviously, it's a question of training for them to assess what is going on. It was interesting for me to learn that the healing, you can only assess whether there was, squeezing damage in the back, not in the front. I thought that was interesting, and that you only figure that out when that heals rather than, 10 minutes later. So even as a parent, when you come back to your child, um, I would have anticipated that's something you would know right away, but apparently not. So anyway, it's a matter of training for the parents, and anyone who encounters small children. So um, yeah. And then on the other hand, when your child falls out of the shopping cart when they're 2 years old and lands, you
Hey.
think lands on the head, and then you haul your child to the ER and you go, she just fell out of the shopping cart. I promise you, I did not push her out of the shopping cart. Feels a little odd to go to the ER with that, and you go, I'm apparently the worst mother on the planet. My child fell out of the shopping cart. But at the end of the day, you need to overcome that and still go to the doctor.
Mhm.
So, I guess as a parent, you also need to trust that a pediatrician or the ER doctor can make it can assess a difference between here's a parent who says this happened 20 minutes ago to here's a mysterious thing that I don't know anything about that might have happened 3 days ago when my child was with someone else. So I think I think the crux here is the training portion of the people who might be in the position to assess this. So,
Yeah, and because of those reasons, it's hard to diagnose. It's hard to know it when it happened. It's hard to know who it happened. It's almost never prosecuted, even though it's a very dangerous form of child abuse and can result in death. So it's very difficult to prosecute. And I also forgot to mention that, and I actually should put a slide on this. This has come up a couple times. So many of the developmental disabilities, because shaken baby leads to developmental disabilities, that was 70% of the time. And so there's a lot of children walking around out there that these disabilities start showing up around age 3 or 4 that could have been from shaken baby. And how do you even know? You don't remember 4 years ago what happened, certainly, and you don't remember maybe what caregiver you left it with. And so there's a lot of suggestion that some of these developmental disabilities are a result of undiagnosed abusive head trauma. And part of it too, not necessarily getting the help. So the baby isn't taken to the doctor. Nobody really knows something's going on. There's a hematoma. Maybe that one resolves on its own. And not all of them do, it's important to take the baby emergency room because the babies can die. Not always does it resolve on its own, but sometimes it can resolve on its own at home and then turn into a disability. So
right. So is this a presentation that anybody would need or want, in their job? I'm sure if they did, you would share it, KJ, if anyone wants it.
yeah, and I'm happy to train it, but I'm also I can share the actual PowerPoint and then people can use whatever there is no one set way to do this because every parent is different. Their cognitive ability is different, their experience level is different, etc. The number of caregivers they're relying on is different. So you just have to, that's why we built the bigger presentation, and then you can do it all, do part of it, or just do the video and the crying
So
plan.
And is your organization a good resource for questions and training, apparently, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm
I don't-
happy to, if you need this training in one of your groups, just let me know and I'll come do that.
Idaho Children's Trust Fund, ladies and
Any other
gentlemen.
questions or thoughts?
I just have one question from a parental perspective. This is so terrifying. You know, I have grandkids, so this is like terrifying to even think about or hear about this happening to children. But it does happen. And I guess from a parent perspective, what advice could I give my adult children to look out for as far as when they're approving care for their child? You know, aside from cameras maybe being in the daycare and all the rooms maybe being a good preventative type measure. Not that that's going to prevent it, but I think somebody's going to be a lot less likely to do that if they know it's going to be on camera. Are there any other things
I
that
don't
you
think so.
suggest?
Yeah. The thought is that it's not, because all it takes is that and it's over. So it's just it's just an instantaneous frustration. It's one of those, and now the trauma's happened. And so having a camera when someone's irritated like that, does a camera keep you from saying shit? Because the camera's there, you know, not really. So it's really I know. Now I'm on recorded video. I know now, right? But it's that same concept that the conversation has to happen in advance. Did I lose you guys?
No.
Oh,
still
yeah,
hear
the
you.
conversation
No,
has
we're
to
frozen a little bit, but
happen.
we can hear you.
I'll go off video. I'm not sure if that's me that. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this-
so
this is-
but so to answer your question, it's just to make sure that the caregiver is they feel that the caregiver is safe and doesn't have a temper problem, doesn't
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with Chrissy there. I just had spring break and just spent a week with my brand new first 7-week-old grandbaby, 7 to 8 weeks, and it was crying a lot. And granted, there were 3, mom, dad, aunt, and myself. And he'll be going to daycare, or they're looking at daycares. And I think preventatively, now that I know all of this, I'm just thinking about quitting my job.
Right?
And heading
Be a
straight to
live-in
Salt Lake
nanny.
City. Because I don't want anybody watching my baby. But I think I will arm my kids with this presentation so that when they're interviewing people, they're saying, "Do you know all about this? What are your plans? How are your people trained?" And just make sure when they're interviewing their care providers that this topic is covered in great detail.
and giving them
And is it all the way up
permission
to 2
all-
years? Is their brain gelatinous for 2
Yeah,
years?
giving those.
Was that a yes, KJ?
That is a good question. I mean, it's bragging, but the risk is the most it happens the most up until 2 years, because at that point they start getting heavier also. It's harder to shake
Right.
them.
Okay. Yeah. Feel sick too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's my internet that's bad, but the main thing is just giving caregivers, like the babysitter, whoever, permission to call. Say, when you start getting frustrated, I don't care who it is that's watching the baby, just say, please let another adult know or me know. That's because you just don't want to get them to that point.
Yeah, distract them, have them do something else.
Yeah, well, certainly
Disengage.
preventable with this
Katie in
information.
the chat asking for flyers, the link for flyers. We can get that link to her. I think that's what she's asking for in the chat.
Right. If there are no more questions, I'd like to go around real quickly and if there are any wins, losses, anyone who needs to have a second opinion on something, bounce an idea off of the group, or share an update of your organization. I'm gonna again, so take a minute or so. We have about 15 minutes left. So if we take a minute or two to update about our organizations or see what the group, you know, we can connect amongst each other, that would be helpful. So Rebecca, do you want to give a quick update about our our volunteer stuff at the United Way?
So yeah, we're working on our volunteer website, which would um, be like a hub for organizations to put out their needs and what they need volunteers for, and for volunteers themselves to create their own profiles so that they can just select projects that they would like to join, where, when they're able to. If you check out Spokane Volunteer Spokane, our website is going to be pretty much the exact same thing, but instead of Spokane area, it's going to be for our area and the 5 northern communities of Idaho. So we are supposed to have that up and running pretty soon. We are supposed to be getting our training on that within the coming weeks. And as soon as we get our training, we will be able to send the website and start getting organizations and individuals signed up for it. So it's really exciting news. So if anybody is interested in that, you can contact me about that, or you can contact Nikki, and we can explain more about it to you and help walk you through the process of the website when it gets live.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of information coming your way. We'll have some flyers, we'll have some verbiage and graphics and information. The volunteer site for Spokane, I believe, is volunteerspokane.com. I don't have the URL for our site yet, but it is going to be, North Idaho, and we'll have that information out to. So basically, if you are an organization that wants to participate and put your projects and your volunteer needs into that system, you as an organization have a profile and put that into the system. And if you're a volunteer, on the other hand, you can get yourself a profile as well and see what is available if you want to volunteer. So basically, it's a hub, it's a connection maker for the two parties. And Rebecca is going to be in charge of that and will be able to answer all the questions and have all the information of how you get hooked up with that. That's really the only update we have for now from the United Way. Chrissy, do you have any updates?
I don't have any updates, but just in case there is individuals that are not familiar with navigation on the call, I just want to let everybody know we do have emergency assistance funding that we primarily use to help individuals who have children who are at risk of destitution, meaning not having heat, electricity, shelter, a way to store, prepare food, those types of issues. We typically pay rent and utilities. It's not limited to that, but that's primarily what it covers. We also have career enhancement funding. So if you have an individual who needs some assistance with either maintaining a job or securing employment, that need could be maybe tires for their car so they can get to and from, work type clothing, that sort of thing. And then we also have kinship funding that is specific to individuals who are raising children because their parents are unable to. And then with that funding, it's a much smaller pool, but we have a lot more flexibility. It's private funding, it's not federal funding. So we have a lot more flexibility in how we can help people with that. If they're raising a child because their parents are unable to, maybe they have a need for helping buy clothes for this child, or paying sports fees, or equine therapy. I mean, we've done all sorts of different things. So if you have any questions, you can always give me a call as well.
Hey, Chrissy, this is Paula with Coeur d'Alene School District. You are a resource I have not used, but probably should be reaching out to, because I'm the homeless liaison. Probably used to work with James Curb. Can I get your phone number and real quick, or do you want to put your phone number and email in the chat box? Or
absolutely, yeah, I can put it in the chat just in case anybody else.
were you on the call last Wednesday with Rebecca Stinson with St. Vincent de Paul, someone from,
Yes.
she never got me the Zoom link, and so I could not get on the Zoom call. And so I think we really need to connect. If we
Yes.
can do that, please.
Are you in Post Falls?
No, I'm in
Or
Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Will do.
Yeah, I should have been there, but they planned it during spring break, and then she didn't include the Zoom, so I couldn't get on. So, all right, if you'll put that in the chat, that'd be great.
You bet.
Thank you.
Brundage, do you have a update or a question or anything?
I always have updates, Nikki. Okay, events coming up in the community. Women and Their Money, at NIC on June 9th from 8 to 5. Tails Foundation is having a Tails Palooza and 1K Doggy Fun Run on May 10th. That's 10 to 2 at Point Parkway Park in Post Falls. Of course, hot dogs and hot rods, July 19th. That's a fundraiser to benefit St. Vincent de Paul. Support, October 16th. We're still looking for chefs. We're looking for sponsors. We're looking for people to come and buy tickets. Housing fair. I do need people. If you want a free booth at McEwen on September 23rd, if you have resources to offer the community, we'd love you to come have a free table there and have everything all in one spot before winter hits in October in Idaho. Span Walk, September 13th. That's for suicide awareness. NAMI Walk on October 4th. That is for mental health awareness. I wanted to put out there really quickly a resource for the community. The First Presbyterian Church and several local churches have an ecumenical kitchen every Thursday. It's today at 11:30 every Thursday of every week, and that's at First Pres, and that's a free lunch. And then also the neighborhood closet at First Pres. If you can actually just contact me and I'll get you in touch with the closet people. But that is all new clothing. That is for Paula. Correct me if I say anything wrong. But it's for school-age children, and it is by referral, so you can't just show up because there needs to be somebody to meet you there to go shopping. And then the last thing is St. Vincent's tours are still going on. There's lots of room in the June tour. The April and May tours are pretty full, but so the date of the next one that has open spaces in it is June 17th, and that's at 1 p.m. They're the third Tuesday of every month. And that's all.
So just to jump onto that, when she says school-age children, it's ages 5 to, well, first basically kindergarten to middle school. However, I would say the tween or middle school portion of it, if they're larger kids or larger elementary school kids, then you would send them to the core community closet, which is me. And I've got closets, nonprofit closets set up at Lake City High School and Coeur d'Alene High School for, your tween and, your middle school and high schoolers. So right now we're addressing kids for prom and senior project at the upper levels. So, and graduation and job interviews and all that stuff. But the neighborhood closet is just a tremendously valuable resource for young children, primarily elementary schoolers.
I forgot to mention earlier that we have funds for childcare scholarships for all 5 counties of North Idaho, but we have a especially good pot of money thanks to the city and the CDBG funding that we have for the 2 zip codes in Coeur d'Alene. So if anyone, there's an eligibility criteria, of course, but anyway, if you are within those parameters which are listed on our website, if you can help us get the word out that we have childcare scholarships available, and especially for the 2 zip codes of Coeur d'Alene, I would appreciate that. The application and eligibility criteria is on our website. It closes for the month on the 10th. So later, say midnight tonight, it closes for the month of April. But of course, it goes basically, whoever comes on the 11th will just be considered in May, is what I'm trying to say. So we look at our considerations on the 10th of the month. So send people our way, applicants and families our way, please, for childcare scholarships. And the next person is Vicky on my screen.
Hi, yeah, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have a low-cost spay and neuter and vaccine clinic that anybody can use. So if anybody has a client that has an animal that, that needs vaccinations or whatever, they can come to us. And it's pretty reasonable compared to the vets in the area. We also have a pet food bank. It's the only program that we have that you need to qualify for. So if you have any clients that are low income and have pets and they can't afford to keep them just because of the food, please have them come to us. They can go to the website, they can come inside, they can fill out the application, and we can get them on the schedule to where we would give them pet food once a month for up to 5 animals in their household. That's it.
Thank you. Katie, do you have anything for us?
That would be Katie.
Oh,
Katie and
sorry.
KJ.
We have a Katie and a KJ.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty good. We just we have a very short wait list. So if anybody knows of any kids 9 to 24 that need any outpatient mental health therapy, and we also offer equine therapy, send them our way. As I said, we have a very short wait list right now, so that would be good.
That is Idaho Youth Ranch.
Correct.
Hey, Katie, do you guys provide transportation for that?
If it is Medicaid, we do set up, medical transport through MTM.
You do?
When they can do it.
Okay.
But if anybody has dealt with MTM, it's a nightmare. But we do try to do that.
You don't do Lyft or Uber or anything like that, or cab?
Kids have to be over 18 in order to do a Lyft or an Uber.
Okay, I've got an 18.
So we just do the medical transport.
Oh, okay, good to know, because I've got.
And that's when they have Medicaid.
Okay.
So.
Sherry Bodicher, do you have anything for us besides the fact that CPG funds are available through the United Way?
Yeah, there's that. We're hosting some fair housing training this month on Tuesday, April 22nd at 12:30 in our library community room. That is free training. It's going to be provided by the Intermountain Fair Housing Council. Anyway, that's happening. And then we're anticipating that we're going to be opening up our application process for the next plan year grant funds for CDBG. We call it our Community Opportunity Grant. So we'll be publishing that in the Coeur d'Alene Press and sending out some email announcements and whatnot in May. So we're anticipating the applications to be open until May 30th. We'll have a grant informational workshop in May as well. And so, yeah, we're just kind of looking towards our next year's funding, which hopefully comes in October. We know there's a lot of unknowns happening with the federal government, but we haven't been alerted to any changes yet. So we're just kind of plugging along, business as usual. So anyone needs some grant funding, we're going to have the minimum proposal amount is going to be $20,000 for each organization, and then we're expecting, I guess, estimating that we would have up to around 100,000 of grant funds available for next year. So that's all I have.
Thank you. KJ, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, just please all come to the event tonight. I'm staying off camera because my internet's unstable, but we have free raffle prizes, food, beverages, resources. Some of you are having resource tables, but just come, and it's only an hour and a half. Love to see you there.
And that was when and where?
The Human Rights Education Institute tonight starts at 4:30.
And that is at HREI, or was that at,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And
KJ, are we supposed to wear our shirts to that?
yes, thank you for reminding me. It is, I know, I see that yours is on. I have.
No, it's not on right now, but I wore it yesterday.
Oh, Katie's wearing it.
And Lisa Donaldson had hers on too. I
Yeah.
don't have mine on yet because I have to unload a car full of boxes and I wouldn't want it to get all sweaty, so I'm waiting.
Yeah, Jennifer asked me like at 7 this morning, are we supposed to wear our shirts again
Yes.
tonight? Because we wore them yesterday and I was in all the high schools yesterday.
And if you
So,
don't have a shirt, come to the event, get a shirt, get them for your staff, because we wear them every Wednesday and they are being worn across the United States. And we ask people to post pictures with your organization, a bunch of people in the blue shirts, and hashtag them up so they just get spread everywhere. This is a nationwide initiative to strengthen families in order to prevent child abuse and neglect, because child abuse occurs when families are frustrated, when they don't have supports they need, and that can lead also to behaviors that cause neglect.
Correct.
Thank
All
you.
right, so I might see some of you tonight. It is 10:02, and thank you for being here today. And the next one will be hosted by Rebecca, and you'll get a new link and a link for telling everyone who you want to hear from Rebecca. Thank you, and I'll see some of you tonight.
yep, thank you.
Bye.